today's video, we're going to be talking about possibly one of the most deadly characters to ever exist. Possibly the most renowned. He was only in, as a main focus, one game, but I mean, he was so powerful in what was shown from him. You can't deny the strength and perfection of this character. No, it's not Tai. Of course it's not. It's Franklin.
It's been a while since that, hasn't it? It's been quite a while since we last brought up a video about Tai or mentioning anything about it. It's been quite a while since we actually mentioned, hey, sooner or later I'll do Tai's video. And here we are. Almost close to half a decade later, but we're here, we made it. So today we are talking about Tai Kaliso. He is the first member of the Zeta squad that we are going to be talking about. The squad of death, as I've come to name them now. You know, we had Gabe's convoy, when I think it was like Alpha Squad, but now we have Zeta squad. The squad of death, we'll call them, or death squad, or something like that. I don't know. But I'm going to be talking about Tai today, and then as we go on, we'll talk about the other members. But when it comes to the polls on both the community side of things and the Twitter side, Tai most definitely did win. So that's what brings us here today. We are going to be talking about Tai Kaliso, his entire life, his views on life and death, and the idea of the spirituality, there we go, that he brings to the table. Not a lot of characters in the series really talk that much about, like, religion. We have an idea that, like, there's a religion based on the All-Fathers. Like, there's an actual dead-set religion on the members who have passed, the people who led the COG, the All-Fathers, or like the people who were back when they started the coalition. They are an actual religious symbol, not just a person of interest or like a very revered person. It is religion based. But we're going to be talking about Tai and how he views everything, how he views the world, and as you can guess with the squad of death, how his death came along. Now, if we're going to talk about everything, we got to start at the very beginning, which means we're going back to everyone's favorite place. We haven't talked about this since the Hivebuster discussion series. We're talking about the South Islands. We're talking about the Islanders, the South Islanders, which Tai is a very heavy member of. He is very tribal. He is very South Islander from the southern portion. The southern part of the South Islands, which he comes from, Iromah is his island. They are very tribal. They live as a hunter-gatherer society. And north of the South Islands, so the northern part of the South Islands, that was more of like the people who are living in modern society. So you had characters like Bernie and Patrick. They lived on the northern islands, while Tai lived on the southern islands. With a big gap like that, the best way to say this, when we talked about all the different kinds of places where people come from in the Gears universe, the South Islands, like we've mentioned before, are basically like your mesh of like New Zealand, Samoa, Australian, but basically what we come down to, what it boils down to, is very New Zealand-y, or New Zealand-ish, depending on how you say it. So he comes from the island of Iromah, where they are very, very dead set, very harsh hunter-gatherers. They are trained to be warriors. They are very heavily trained, bred, upbringing, everything. And Tai comes from this culture. He comes from this island of Iromah where it is like that. So at a very young age, probably from birth, he was trained a very, very deadly way of hunting, gathering, and probably thrown through trials constantly. You know, like the trials we have involving the Wakatu, I'm sure Tai at least knew of them, but Tai probably went through his own trials of maybe take down this giant beast of whatever and bring it back barehanded. Something like that. I could easily see Tai being that kind of character where he was taught that. So that's where he was born and raised. Basically, he even led into his mid-20s, as we can tell, in this kind of culture. He was there his entire life, not really much understanding or coming across anyone from outside of the islands. I'm sure they're aware of them. It seems like they are aware, but they just don't really deal with them at all, so they don't really bother with it. But that all changes when the UIR decides to step foot on these islands. During the Pendulum Wars, the UIR were fighting the COG, and when it came to the war between both of them, it was country versus country. Whatever country sided with who, they fought, and there were neutral countries also that ended up getting brought into the mix of things. Vaskar was one of them, and there is other places, territories of these countries. So they weren't aligned, but they were taking favor with either side. Basically, how it went with the South Islands is that they were aligned with the COG, but they were still their own territory. Now, the COG have other territories that are a part of the COG, but the territory of the South Islands, that territory was their own functioning branch of like government and everything, but they still allied themselves with the COG. So they weren't recognized as a COG country, but they were recognized as you are helping us fight. That's how it was seen. So, with that being seen, the UIR decided to go in and invade the South Islands. Now, when they invaded, they came down to the southern part of the South Islands, and they started making their way through, probably for an invasion of the northern they were going for. And as they went, they slowly were destroying vegetation, the forestry, and the people. Now, Iromah was also hit, and this island, where Tai is from, they fought back, and they fought heavy. Now, Tai was mostly trained in guerrilla warfare as a hunter-gatherer, so while he was out hunting, basically killing UIR soldiers guerrilla warfare style, his village was also back still living their lives while he was keeping like the perimeter taken care of. One day, however, though, the UIR got pretty peeved their people were dying and just bull rushed in and wiped out his entire village while he was out. All of his people were killed, all of them dead. Any family he had within that island, in that village, were gone. There was nothing left. I say that because later on we're going to get into, he does still have family that is alive somewhere, but we're going to touch on that in a moment. While everything is going on, he comes back to his village and sees everything destroyed, everything gone, and of course he's very saddened by this, and we'll get to his discussion on how he sees life and death and the spirit itself. We'll get to that soon when it comes to his time for when he meets his maker. But for now, we're just going to be looking through the events, and then we'll touch on that at the end. But he looks at this and he feels sorrow, because in his eyes, these people, these lives, the sentient soul that is in front of him, they were just wiped out for no reason. It was just a slaughter. They didn't deserve to die. And he takes this very saddeningly, very heavy. And his go-to answer, well, I'm pissed, so how about we just go kill more UIR? And he goes and does it. He continues to just keep on mercilessly going through UIR, now with a lot of anger behind it, and boom, 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 he is wiping them out left and right. Until one day, traveling through the jungles of Iromah, he comes across a soldier that is walking by himself. It is raining, it's just a loud downpour, and he's pulling back his bow, ready to fire upon this soldier. The soldier stops where he is and says, I would not do that if I were you. We learn this soldier is a certain Marcus Phoenix with the COG, the Coalition of Ordered Governments, on Iromah. First off, Tai is taken aback by this by a little bit. Not only, was he noticed where he was, but he was using an arrow so it couldn't be heard. There was a rainstorm coming down, and this gear noticed where he was, didn't even see him, told him. Marcus heard him still. And to this day, I hold that as a feat for Marcus. Like, he easily caught a tribal Tai in the midst of trying to kill him. I thought that was amazing. The people who did this to you are the UIR, the Union of Independent Republics. Those people came to your island and slaughtered your people. I'm with the Coalition of Ordered Governments. I'm on the opposing army. I don't know what you want to do, what your plans are, but I can tell you right now, we're going to win this war. And if you join me and you come on the winning side, you'll be a part of killing the people who killed your family and friends. You come with me, we'll get you into the COG. You can take out as many of them as you want. Tai thinks about this for a few moments, and he does decide to join the COG. He does become a member of the Coalition of Ordered Governments, and he joins into the 26th RTI with Marcus Phoenix. Cut into the future by a little ways, and we jump our way into Aspio Fields, where we have a newly enlisted Tai taking up and fighting along with everyone else at Aspio Fields in UIR territory. During this battle, for anyone who doesn't know what Operation Leveler is, Aspio Fields, I'll give you a brief rundown because the games do not do it justice with what actually happens. So, with Aspio Fields, what happens is that the idea is that the UIR has plans to make a device that'll just end the war. The Hammer of Dawn. Now, it is planned by the COG. We're going to run in. We are going to grab those quickly with a covert operation, grab the plans, grab the scientists involved in it, bring it back to COG territory, and it's ours. And we're going to end the war with that weapon. While that's going to happen, we need a very powerful offensive force to run in and keep their attention of their main military while we do the covert operation. That covert operation is done by Hoffman and by Dom. Over during Aspio Fields, during the major big boom boom fight, you've got Marcus Phoenix, Bernie Mataki, Tai Kaliso, Carlos Santiago. You've got more. You got, I believe Quinn is there, and other characters too that have names that I'm not going to get into because there was a lot. It is just a massive battle to the death. It is. Now, originally, remember, this is supposed to be a distraction, but it is a fight. Like, literally, there are bullets flying everywhere, rocket launchers, tanks, there is everything. At one point, Marcus goes in ballistic radio mode, jumps inside of a half-blown open tank, drives it around UIR, like, the side they're on, and just starts killing them with their own tank. That all happens. And Tai's in the middle of all that. You would think, oh, it's Tai Kaliso. Like, obviously, this badass that was killing people on the islands, like, he must have a major thing that happens. He does and he doesn't. So Tai goes through, and he is killing UIR soldiers. He is making it a fact that he is going to kill them. And he takes out quite a few. He takes out a good amount. Like, he lays waste to quite a bit of them, even holds some in his arms while they're dying, and uses them as meat shields to keep fighting. That was Tai. He fought to the death, tooth and nail, at Ashfield Fields for revenge, in his own mind. The final thing we see at Ashfield Fields for Tai, however, is when it's getting close to the end, like, they realize, like, okay, the operation's done for Leveler, we need to get everyone out of here before we lose more life, because a lot of people on the COG side did die. A lot did. In fact, speaking of which, Helena Stroud tells him, you need to go and evac the rest of our soldiers and get them out of here. You need to get them back out, and we need to leave. This battle's done. What we came here for is over. And he says, sure, I'll take care of it, and he starts evacuating people. That is the last time he ever sees Helena Stroud. Basically, how it comes down to why Helena is leaving is because she has to go back and get Marcus and Carlos and anyone else still further in enemy lines. So she's going out, and while Tai is there, he's basically like, I can take care of this, but like, you're walking into a slaughter. And that Helena does it, and slaughter, that's what happens to her. Helena Stroud's video will happen someday. Give it another 4.5 years from this one. I'm sure I'll tackle it. He gets everyone evacuated, and that's when they leave, and Ashfield Fields is finished. The mission is accomplished, and Tai is still with us. From here, we go on to like a little bit of the Pendulum Wars that was left. Really, there was like 2 years after they got the weapon where the Pendulum Wars was still going. Later on, we actually hear a conversation during the Locust War with Tai and Hoffman, where they talk about how they believed after the Lightmass bombing, the war was almost over. And Hoffman said, like, hey, even after Operation Leveler, there was still war going on. Like, there was still stuff going on. It didn't just end right there. And he said it's probably going to be the same for this war. It's not just going to end on the spot. And it did end later on, but the Lightmass bomb was not what did it. But what happened is that there was an operation at Gato City, it was called. This was over in, and I have it here, the Independent Republic of Furlan. So the Independent Republic of Furlan was an actual territory of the UIR. That was one of their countries that was actual UIR control. They were sent in to do basically what they were sent in for, I believe, was just to take out a base or take out a group of UIR that were stationed there. And they went there, and during that mission, it was Tai, Dom, Marcus, and Padrick. They all four went out, and they were sent in to deal with this mission. They were a part of C Company. And when they went in there, they took care of the mission, and they continued forward, and they went on to another region of it. And this is where we got to the end of the Pendulum Wars. This is where they learned, like, the war was over, everything was done, but they were still fighting UIR that hadn't gotten the message, like, oh no, dead serious, the war is actually over. And then the ceasefire begins, everyone's celebrating, Tai is celebrating. It's literally the end of the war. Like, Tai's people died because of this war. He was more than happy that it was over, that the war was done, and Tai just says, you know what? That's all I really wanted. You know, I've avenged my people. I took out as many as I could. I'm with the COG now. I enjoy being with the COG. It's what I like doing. This is what my story is going to be. And for 6 weeks after the war is over, he's basically like, yeah, this is life. I might go back to my island or something, maybe meet with another tribe on another island. But we all know what happens after 6 weeks. So after 6 weeks, the Locust War begins. Now, we don't get much from Tai for the beginning of the Locust War. We don't know where he is for that first year before the 1 AE mark is placed. We don't really know. Like, for instance, like when it came to, like, Marcus, Dom, Baird, Cole, we knew what they were all doing in their different areas. I believe we also knew what Dizzy was doing. It's explained in his story what he was doing. A bunch of characters were told of like what they did before 1 AE, before the hammers dropped. So with Tai, we jump forward 1 AE to when he is now still a part of the same company. He was a part C Company with Padrick, Dom, Marcus. They're all still together. And for this one, we go to Jannermont. So Jannermont is kind of a very important place in the story of Gears of War, because not only is this where Tai's story is involved with some of the main things that happen in the universe, we're going to touch on that in one moment, this is where the chainsaw bayonet was devised and planned. Jannermont, they enter into the city. They're basically there just to do pretty much a sweep, just to check through and their mission is basically to go in. They're told it's too dangerous, but they still go in. And when they're there, they end up in a portion of the city where there's a department store. And this is where they fight a band of locusts that are there. And it's pretty much like an even keel fight. Marcus gets knocked down at one point and is wrestling against a locust trying to kill him. Marcus is back to the ground, pretty much fighting for his life. One of the only 2 times you ever really see that. And out of nowhere, behind him, from the department store, I guess it was still charged or something, I don't know, Tai slices this locust in half above Marcus with a power saw. Slices him right in 2, right from behind. Just blood everywhere. It's said that Tai was just having a grand old time. Marcus thanks him, and they get out of there, and they report to Adam Phoenix. Now, Marcus reports to Adam and tells him, like, hey, listen, the bayonets we've been using against the locust have not been working. We'll try stabbing them. They snap in half. They get stuck. They're not going far enough in for penetration. Just say that sentence as much as you want. It's not doing anything. We're not killing anyone with these bayonets. They're just clunky and just in the way at this point. So, Adam, after hearing how the power saw worked, devises the idea of what if, stick with me now, what if we took our guns, right? We had our guns, big guys. What if we took those? We got rid of the knives, and we just straight up replaced it with a chainsaw. Now, stick with me. I know, it sounds a little crazy, but what if we put a chainsaw on it? Bayonet goes to chainsaw. I think this is a good decision. And it is, because that's how we get the Mark II Lancer, that's how we get the signature weapon of Gears of War, and that's how we get basically all carnage left and right when you hit the B button going in to slice someone in half in the games. It's a grand old time, part of video game history, and Tai was involved in making that happen. So, continuing on, the hammer strikes are finally about to come. They haven't hit yet, but they're coming. So, when the strikes are about to happen, they are told that they need to go out and they need to help get everyone evacuated that they can get in. During this time also, just to mention it, Adam Phoenix is trying to get Marcus evacuated into Ethera, trying to get him out of any chance of getting hit with the blast. Marcus says no and instead gets other survivors out of there, and it goes down to everyone in C Company trying to get everyone in, and they finally make it back to Ethera. Once they're there, they're sent back out where they have to go Voslov Bridge. Now, the reason they're going to this bridge is they're trying to clear it out. They're trying to make room for it, get it out of the way, make it so that it's easier for people to get through. The issue is, however, is that the locusts have dug in on this bridge. So they are to go out, clear the bridge, get everything out of the way with a bulldozer so that people are able to keep trying to get in for evacuation. Now, when they go there, they're able to get the ambush on them. So basically what happens is, there's a lot of locusts on this bridge, there's a lot of vehicles, there's a lot of everything. What they do, they go to the bridge controls before the locusts can even understand what's going on. Marcus opens the bridge so that they're sliding down and getting crushed by cars. And then they blow up a portion of it that won't cause any problems for evacuation, but basically Tai blows up a portion of the bridge and just kills the remainder. Then they use the bulldozer and open the bridge so that more people are able to get through. That's basically what Voslov Bridge was. There's no real eloquent way to put it. We just killed 50 locusts and opened the bridge. But Tai was there and Tai was involved in getting rid of them. So I'll give you that one, Tai. If we went through the Hoffman video and mentioned everything, we might as well mention everything with Tai. Dom and Tai's relationship is really seen as like a clashing of like, not really a butting of heads, but like they're friends, but their views and philosophies are different. For instance, like I said, when we get to the spiritual side of things, which will be coming up in a moment, Tai is very spiritual in his own sense, in his own way. It's kind of a little odd and vague how he sees things. The best way I can describe it is, if something is, in his eyes, having a soul and is sentient, that is something where it is sacred life. Kind of. That's how he sees it. If something is not sentient or does not have a soul, he does not see that as being life in general. He sees that as an item or a tool. Or like, as we'll see later on, he sees it as like a vessel. He doesn't really see it as this is something to be mourned over if something were to happen. So that's why with his village, sentient, soulful people who were slaughtered down, he very much felt not only remorse for the people he knew, but the people that were there, the people who got gunned down and with no way to defend themselves. He felt true despair, distraught from that. That's how he felt. Dom, however, sees it as like And Dom has this view, Baird has this view, Cole does, Del later on, where even some things that aren't sentient or doesn't have a soul, like machines, they still see it as useful or like playfully give it nicknames or have endearing traits towards it. Like with Jack. So with Jack, like we'll get into later on, he doesn't really see that as having like a soul, so he doesn't care what happens to Jack. But when it comes to people, he very much does care. The reason he brings that up is Dom tells him, like, hey, when the hammer strikes hit, do you think the islands will get hit? And Tai says, like, no, I don't think they will. Why would they waste their time on the islands? There's really nothing there in general. Aside from, like, the tribal people, there's really nothing. The locusts can't get there anyway. The trench is already in between. They can't do anything. After they're done with the bridge and they get more information, you learn that the islands were, in fact, hit. And the only thing that Tai has to say is, yeah, he does hope his family weren't hit or anything like that, but that's all he can really hope for, because what's done is done, he sees. Like, what am I supposed to do to stop the laser from blowing up my people? I can't do anything about that. I'm sad about it, but I can't do anything. And we do learn later on with Lonnie, his people, at least his people were still around. He still had family and other tribes in different areas that lived. That's how Lonnie came to be, because Lonnie is his cousin. So we learn that, you know, the Kaliso name still lives on, luckily. That's what we still get. We don't really get anything involving Tai until the Shadow of Ram DLC, or the evacuation of Iromah. We don't get anything until that, because it's very open to what he was doing at that point. That was like 1 AE to 9 or 10 AE, around that. That's what we're looking at. So there's around 8 or 9 years where Tai is kind of just doing his own thing with the cog. Like, he's still going out, but this is the first time with Zeta where he actually is thrown into, like, okay, we're doing some very, like, heavily impacting against the Locust things here. Covering the Shadow of Ram DLC and the evacuation of Iromah, I am going to cover this, but I'm not going to cover it as thoroughly as I normally would, because of the fact that this is the same story that is shared by the other characters we're going to be talking about. So I am going to be touching on things, just not that in depth. If I'm going to go more in depth on that, I can do an entire evacuation of Iromah story, or explanation of what happened there. There are so many skirmishes that happen in the story. I could make a whole series of just the battles and just go in depth to what happens during them. I could make a 3-hour video on, like, here's a list of skirmishes, let's go over all of them in detail. I'm not going to do the evacuation of Iromah that heavily because it just doesn't call for it. We're just going to touch on things that involve Tai with all of this. One thing to know about the evacuation of Iromah is that Tai does not play a very heavy key role. He is there with Zeta, he is one of the 4, he is putting nuts to butts, trust me. But he's not stepping in as, like, you know, I'm the voice of reason, I'm the one leading the crew. He's not like that. He's basically the background muscle. That's what Tai is in this story. Because when this game came out, it was Gears of War 3. Everyone knew who Tai was. Everyone knew how much of a badass he was. He did not need to say words, and you got the premise of what he was doing. So basically what happens is we start off with them over during one of the evacuation checkpoints that they're in. They're loading up the last of the people, and Tai is there talking to a child, and he hands him his ball, and we all know the scene of the child gets in, the child is sunk in. That was the last time anyone saw that child. But that was Tai at the beginning we see, so we know that Tai Kaliso is here. They are hit hard and attacked. They do end up able to fight off a lot of them, but they can't fight them off for long because they start popping up within their area for the checkpoint, so they leave the checkpoint to go and help out Echo 5. Echo 5 is fighting, and they're holding up on their end, but Echo 5 does die as the battle continues with Zeta, so Echo 5 is gone, and it's just Zeta that is left there. The next thing they are told is that they need to go find survivors. Don't forget, they're still evacuating right now. They feel like when it comes to, like, the survivors, they must have scattered and found somewhere to live. So they go over to the vaults at the bank, because their thought is, like, okay, there are vaults, you know, if you're going to keep yourself safe, that's where money is safe. Tai, let's have a funny quote of just, like, monetary value is fleeting, just like money. It doesn't matter. But their thought process is we'll go and check the bank and see if anyone's surviving. They do find a survivor, however, and this is Jace. They do find Jace, and they get Jace out of there, and basically he's the only one that survived, the only one that made it. And you learn that he originally was holed up with other people over with his parental figure, Wizen, I believe his name is. He was the principal of the high school. He was also the head of the orphanage in town. He is going to be getting evacuated, and he would want them to go and check on basically his father figure to make sure that he's all right and they can evacuate him. While they are doing this, they notice that in the sky everything has gotten darker. The cedars are out in force. They are inking the sky completely. things are getting bad. They don't have much time left. I believe they say at this point it's only like 3 hours left until evacuation can't happen anymore, and it's gone. Everyone's gone. There were a large amount of soldiers that were in Iromah, but as time goes, you will see throughout this story for the evacuation of Iromah, the numbers dwindle very quick for COG forces. And that's because Rom is also in Iromah, killing a lot of people. They do come in contact and see Rom at one point. They just kind of like see him. They don't engage or anything at this point. They just see him and know, oh dang, we need to get things done and leave. This is bad. If the head of the Locust army is here, we gotta bounce. So from there, we basically go to them trying to get to the evacuation convoy with Jace so they can drop him off and they can get heading out. While they're going there, they decide we got to take out some of these cedars. We got to get rid of like whatever's causing a holdup of everything. The sky, getting people out, everything. And Tai puts a quip in where they find the cedars that they're trying to take out, and he says, "Our guns won't do anything, but let's just crush them with buildings." And that's what they do. And they crush all of them. A Brumok comes in. They take care of that. Tai's involved in that. So Tai has come face to face with a Brumok and take one out. Crazy to think about. And once they get him on the convoy, they decide, okay, now it's time we go check the school and get Wizen out of here. While they're traversing through the school, they get there, they're going through, they notice that no one survived. Everyone is dead. They can hear through the comms throughout the entire building that Wizen basically told everyone they need to leave and go to the orphanage. So they realize the orphanage is where everyone probably is. That's where Wizen probably is. So they are going to be heading there next. The problem is they have to get through the school, and the school is heavily overrun by not only the Locust, but you have Tickers that are everywhere in there. Centipedes have now set up in there, giant Centipedes. And it is a battle to get out, and awaiting you at the very end in this gymnasium where there is just countless death, you have yourself a Berserker ready to go and ready to kill. They take out the Berserker. It is a fight. They have to improvise using weapons, throwing it in, basically having it run into cars and blow itself up, and then they can start shooting upon it. But they do take out the Berserker, and they start taking the journey to get over to the orphanage. Now, to get there, they have to go through some areas, one of them being City Hall. City Hall is also extremely overrun with locusts. It is very bad. They are dug in, but they are able to go in, pick them out one by one, get through City Hall. This is where they're able to kind of just clear out everything that's there, kind of make it so that they have a way to get to the orphanage and clear out anything that's in their way. They learn, because they can't get through comms, so they have to use the hammer to clear out the cedars so that they have communications to know what's going on. They learned that it is so bad there is 25 minutes left for evacuation before there is no one getting out of Iromah and it's a dead zone from the Krill storm that awaits them up top. It is literally like night is above them. They learn they do not have much time. They have to get to the orphanage. They bust through. They get there. It takes a while, but they do make it to the orphanage after City Hall, and you do see there is Wizen with the rest of the survivors, and this is where they're getting the evacuation. The convoy comes by. Jace is in there, and it's like, okay, time to get everyone in here and get out of here. The Locusts appear, go figure, and a battle breaks out. It ensues. It's crazy. Behind Tai and the others who are fighting forward in front of them to hold off the Locusts, you hear a scream coming from the back. You turn around. They believe it's Jace because they hear Jace, but they see Valera went in and tried to fight off Rom, and Valera has now been killed. Spoiler alert for her video, but hey, for anyone who doesn't watch the Tai one and watch Valera, don't worry. Yeah, you guys aren't seeing this, so you're not missing anything. It's fine. You're okay. You're golden. Once this happens, everyone shifts focus to Rom, and they start unloading, and it is now fighting against Rom that they deal with. He gets on his personal Reaver that also controls Krill, blows out the bridge. They are separated from the orphanage now. They make their way back to the orphanage. They have to fight through a lot of stuff. They have to fight all the way back around to get there. The Locust forces are heavy. Like, this is where Rom was when he showed up at the end. So you have a lot of heavy hitters that show up here fighting. You even have the unidentified Theron who can control Krill. He's a pain to deal with, but they fight through all of it. They make it to the end, and they're able to hold off and kind of secure the orphanage for how they can get evacuation going. And they figure the best way, the only way we can do this at this point now, is to actually get them picked up and going through a chopper. Get them on a Raven, get everyone out of here. That's the best they got. During this entire battle, you have Jace picking up the gun before the bridge was blown out and deciding he will fight alongside them. And he fights alongside Barrick, Kim, and Tai all together. They go through and they make it to the end. So it's all four of them now holding it off. And this is when Rom comes down, and it's 4-on-1 against Rom, and the battle begins. And the battle honestly goes a lot better than you thought. So Kilo holds off Rom. They don't kill him, but they're able to hold him off and get it so that he's out of the way. They kind of shoot him out of the sky, and he lands down. This is when you learn, like, Tai, Barrack, and all of them are going to do evacuation. We got to get out of here now. We don't have time. This is when Kim leaves off to try and go take on Rom. Barrack leaves to go and get Kim. They come back. Everyone does evacuate. Everyone makes it out alive. It is the very last few moments, the last opening in the sky they're able to fly out of, and they're able to make it out of the Krill Storm in Iromah. The evacuation is a success for them. They are able to also leave, and they bring survivors with them, one being a future Jace Stratton. Cutting forward again into the future, going forward about 4 or 5 years, we now have the events at Northgate. So for anyone who doesn't know what Northgate is, this takes place in the first Gears of War book. This is after Gears of War 1, where Tai, officially by release-wise, this is the first time we're introduced to Tai. So his character's a little bit more, not as, like, quiet or, like, looming as his other characters when it comes to, like, the things he says, but it's still Tai Kaliso, no matter what. This is still Tai. We get a lot more of spirituality and understanding and reasoning of his character from this book, and during Northgate, this is the situation where the light mass has just gone off, and it comes down to Tai and Hoffman. Tai is driving an APC where they are going off, and basically they're checking on the situation. Basically what happens at Northgate is this is where, like, they're growing all their vegetation and food. This is a growing area on wheels. So they're going off to check on that, to check on locusts, to clear things out so that this place is safe. While going across, they come across Stranded, where they want to try and communicate. Hoffman wants to see if they know anything, and Hoffman basically just gets the bird from a lot of them, and just a bunch of slanderous things said because they're stranded. They don't care much about the cog. They do not care. So they continue going. Tai really doesn't care. He just laughs it off. And this is where they go and they ambush locusts. They go over, they do an ambush, take out a good amount of locusts. They continue forward. While they're making the rounds to go back and forth, the situation of Stranded huddle around something. And you learn that this is another APC, another vehicle that was destroyed, blown up. The supplies are left there. There's dead cog there. And Tai is furious as ever that the Stranded are walking over these dead bodies of his comrades. So basically, Ty's pissed. He's ready to kill them. Hoffman kind of intervenes a little bit, and he's just like, blah, 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 blah. You guys need to evacuate and get out of here, or we will start shooting. In the background, you're like, no, Tai will actually kill you. He will straight up just kill you right now. They go through, and basically they make it stated how Hoffman says that this is a temporary war graveyard. This is the tomb of the dead temporarily for now where they are. The Stranded leave and they make the decision of like, okay, we're going to get back what we can. But when we come back here, Tai says, I would like to collect what we can from these men. I want to get everything I can and pretty much make sure they're not desecrated anymore. Hoffman agrees to this very much because Hoffman is all about his men. So they agree to this and they set off continuing forward to an ambush that's set up for them. As they're continuing to hold off Northgate, they get a distress call that's coming off from over in the distance, from a little ways away from where they are, for where the convoy is going to move the supply of vegetation. And basically they go there, they get out, they're searching the area. They notice locusts are around. The locusts are there. They see the locusts. But the locusts are not attacking. They're not doing anything. Basically, the idea is that the ambush they're going to was basically like a mayday, or they heard that the men were injured there. They get there and realize there are no men. The original thought is that the locusts will keep them alive because they want to pull them into an ambush, but there's no men there. And they're like, well, why would they just wait for us to come here if there's no men? Why are they waiting? Why are they not shooting? Why are they not doing anything? A little background about Tai that leads into what happens next. Tai has a lot of comrades in the war. He sees them all as family, and a lot of people have died around him, near him, he's heard of. He's had a lot of death. One thing that his comrades once suffered that he was out with and he wasn't a part of because he wasn't there was a car bomb went off under an APC and blew up his entire team. And basically ever since then, Tai always checks every vehicle he's riding in to see if there's any explosives or booby traps. Just so happens, while they were out looking to see what was going on, some locusts came through and they did booby trap the bottom of that APC. So that APC, that vehicle, they get in, they're dead. So they realize, oh, the ambush wasn't meant for, they weren't going to kill us when we walked out there. They were waiting for us to get car bombed and then scavenge the parts. That's what they were waiting for. Basically, what they do next, they turn their comms off on their headpieces so that Control isn't going to send more men over and they're not going to risk more men dying. Hoffman and Tai understand that we can try and get back, we're going to do everything we can, but worst case, we're going to take as many as we can with us, or at least make sure they can't follow the convoy that's going on. They hold off a last stand ditch effort to take them down. Of course, though, however, everyone back at the base knows what they're doing. It's like they turn their comms off. They're the only two out there. We know there's locusts. obviously something's about to happen. Marcus and Dom do end up going out even without the comms being active, and they go out and they fight. They save Tai and they save Hoffman, get everybody back. And basically, once they're back and everything's handled and done, Tai does, however, finally go out and get the retrieving, even just the cog tags, but whatever he can of the fallen people who have passed. And he continues to mourn and bring back what he can to the base so that they can, properly go through and remember the fallen. We jump forward just a few weeks at this point because Gears of War 2 does not take place that long after the books. I think it's only like a month later. They first make it over into... They're all in Jacinto at this point. Dom, Marcus, Ben is now with them, and Tai. And they meet Tai over at Jacinto Medical. Now, Jacinto Medical is where the current main hospital for everyone is. This is the best hospital they have, the only one they have left, where they're trying to treat the people that are there. As they go in, this is our first introduction to Rustlung also, and there's Tai just sitting there. Being Tai is the best way I can put it. Just crouched down on his knee, raises his head. It's Tai Kaliso. He explains to them what Rustlung is. Like, it sucks, it affects your lungs, don't go near it, it's bad. And that's our first introduction. So it's funny. Rustlung was introduced to us by Tai Kaliso. He was our, okay, here's what you get. That's gonna be Lambent later on. So yeah. Basically, and he fights with you throughout the hospital. And he's basically your guide to like the tutorial of like, here's how Gears of War 2 runs, here's what to expect kind of. It's really nice because Ty's with you during all of that throughout the entire battle in Jacinto. And this is also when you get up to the point where Dom realizes that there's no more leads on his wife. And Tai is there for all that. And Ty's like, he knows Dom well and he knows he's been searching. I'm guessing Tai realizes, yeah, this isn't the greatest thing for Dom at the moment. Immediately from that, we go into Hollow Storm now. Once all the cog is rounded up and it's time for them to take the offensive, Tai is a part of that. Tai is sent out with everyone else to Landdown, and he survives the trip there. But once they get to Landdown, that's when his rig is destroyed, blown up. His entire squad is killed, the driver's killed, everyone's gone, except for Tai. It is important to know at this point, too, that all of the stuff that Tai has done in his career, before he joined the cog, everything, when it comes to how people view Tai, he is seen as one of the only two pillars that holds up the cog when it comes to morale or like soldiers. The other one being Marcus Phoenix. Honestly, with Tai, if you had to ask me who is like on the same level as like when it comes to Marcus, when it comes to like putting both their stats next to each other, who holds a candle, it probably is Tai. Like, that's the thing you have to understand is, like, Tai was known as, like, the unbreakable. He was known as, like, no one kills Tai. Tai kills you. That's how it is. So, Tai, walking out of an exploding big rig, thwacking out of the way, just big old, just hunk a slab of metal, and just keeps walking out like nothing happened. Yeah, that's Tai Kaliso. That's what you expect from Tai. But he makes it, he joins up with Delta, and they continue to fight their way through on their rig with Dizzy. They go through and they make it to the drilling site for Landdown. When they make it there, it gets interesting. It gets very interesting. So, Scourge is a thing. Scourge exists. Scourge was the head of the Cantus, and he took over the army after Rom died. Scourge is not a pushover. Scourge is a warrior. He might be a monk, but he's a warrior monk. He jumps up, and he's slicing tanks in half. He gets on top of the big rig that Dizzy's driving. He gets on there, and he's looking for a fight. Marcus and them are stuck. They can't get out. Dizzy's trying to hold him off. He's trying to do his best, but Dizzy can only do so much. Tai is not fully into his drop yet, so he gets out, and he starts fighting against Scourge one-on-one, goes in. Basically, at this point, Dizzy is still there assisting, but he can only help so much. It is two of them versus Scourge, and they're fighting. Basically, Tai doing 90% of the work. I love you, Dizzy, but we know who is pulling the weight. And the fight's continuing. Marcus and Dom get out of there, and they're still going at it. It finally gets to the point where Tai is losing ground. He is actually like, oh, dang, I'm actually losing right now. He tells Dizzy to leave, and Dizzy obliges. He doesn't want to, but he leaves because he realizes if we both stay here, we're both going to die, and I can't do anything to assist. And Dizzy takes this very heavily later on. He regrets that he ever left. He wishes that he never listened to Tai, and he continued to fight. He didn't really want to leave, like, oh yeah, I'll leave, bye, see ya. He was begrudgingly having to leave. Like, he didn't want to leave Tai there. But he's like, fine, I'll go. That's how it ended up. And he still carries that to this day. Even in the books, he carried all of it. Tai does lose. He does not die, but he does lose to Scourge. Like, he full-on loses and he is taken away with the rest of the people that survived land down that were captured. He's taken to processing. Processing is not fun. It is basically torture, breaking you. They literally break your body. They'll amputate you. Lobotomies are a thing. All of this is happening. Your body is just completely destroyed and your will is broken. So all of this is going on, and Tai's process gone through. He's put onto a barge where he is going to be sent off probably to go into the slave mines. During Delta's mission to go through, they come across the barge and they're trying to free survivors. They come across Tai. They meet Tai. This is where Marcus, this is the more graphic part, warning for everyone right now. Marcus, not knowing the damage that has been inflicted to Tai, hands him a Nasher shotgun and says, "Here, come with us. We're going to fight our way out of here." Tai holds it, just looks at it sickeningly, puts it under his chin, and he pulls the trigger. This is one of the more sadder moments in the Gears of War story. It was probably Dom's death, most definitely, but Tai's death also. When Tai died, it was very much like, it's Tai. No one can kill Tai. Ben even says that. I thought no one could, which is normally true. The only one that could do it was Tai himself. And it's sad. Like, Dom, Marcus, Baird, Cole, they're all taken aback. Marcus especially, he's been fighting with him since the 26th RTI and the Pendulum Wars. He just watched his brother take his own life. He goes up, he gets the tags, they can't take the body, and they leave. And that is the death of Tai. That is the end of it. But not the end of his legacy. Not the end of what he stands for and what he is. Once everything is done with Gears of War 2, the sinking of Jacinto is done, and everyone evacuates to Port Farrell, or Farrell, depending on how you want to say it. Once they go to Farrell, this is where Marcus gives the news to everyone, starting with Anya, and going on from there. Anya was actually told already, but I think he just showed the tags. But what he tells Bernie, Hoffman, and Dizzy, and none of them take it well. None. Bernie wants to go out and just mercilessly start torturing locusts. Hoffman, this is someone he's fought with, someone he saw as an amazing gear. He's burdened by it. Dizzy sees this as he was a coward for leaving, maybe if he would have stayed. Later on, Dizzy does come to terms, like, even if I would have stayed, it wouldn't have done anything. But yeah, Dizzy truly takes it hard. Dizzy decides, hey, let's all drink into his name. That's the best we can do. And yeah, that's where it goes from there. Like I said, later on, the Kaliso name survives. Lonnie's still a thing, so obviously the Kaliso family is still out there somewhere, but that is Tai's life in a nutshell. I guess some interesting things we can end this off with about Tai would just be talking about him. For instance, I think the best way to put it is like... So there's one thing I want to mention. This is going to be a little mini tangent, but you'll get it. Like, okay, so... Tai, when we first meet him, canonically in the story, is a very slim, very jacked individual that fights with a bow and a knife, okay? He is very slim, but throughout the story of Gears of War, all the way up to his death, the entire story, I feel it's intentional. It has to be intentional, okay? He is very thin and very fast. As the story goes, as the years go by, he gets a lot more bulkier, tankier, and he gets slower, okay? Like, he wears nothing but a loincloth when we meet him. During the events of the Pendulum Wars, he's wearing normal COG armor, but he was just enlisted. You see him, he's still got the same build. You see him in the evacuation of Iromah, he's gotten a little thicker. He's like medium build with a medium amount of armor on, so he's not wearing a loincloth anymore. And then Gears of War 2, he's just got a fat head and... a bigger body, and a big old pauldron that takes up the side of his arm, and he's like, I'm Tai. Let's do this. Oh my god, I love it so much. Oh my goodness, yeah. Like I said, Tai, another interesting thing, very spiritual. Like I said with Jack, this was the situation when it came to getting the vehicle bomb off of, after they were done with the ambush, and the bomb that was on the vehicle, they were getting it off. Jack was sent to get it, and he didn't care if Jack died or not. Dom was worried about it, and this is where they get in their conversation of a soul or not. And I think the best way to really end this video talking about things is really just to go over the dialogue of the comic that Tai is like narrating as it goes right before his death. Life is simple. There is the void, there is the darkness, there is the light. Much is learned on the hunt. How to mask one's scent, how to blend in with one's surroundings, how to move silently, how to move quickly, how to kill efficiently, how to adapt, and most of all, how to survive. Some have said war is hell. War is not hell. For in hell, innocence is spared. When a man has nothing left, when everything has been taken from him, he becomes his enemy's worst nightmare. When a man has nothing left, he is ready for change. My people believed that the body was sacred, but only when a soul dwelled within him. Once the soul had passed, the body was but a husk. Your enemy forgives you. Every warrior has an equal, an opposing force, equal in strength. Every warrior has a superior, an opposing force that he cannot overcome. My grandfather once told me that a soul will leave its body when it is time. Not always at death, he said. When the body becomes a prison, it is time for the soul to escape. And once the soul is gone, the body will follow soon after. There is the light, there is the void, there is the darkness. That hits so hard and to the point when it comes to Tai's story, because it really is when he was broken and his body was done, his soul had left. He saw his body as a husk. There's no point being here anymore. There's nothing left of me here. And he chose the body to leave. It is so impactful, and the comics did such good justice going over that, because it all happens in a flash during the game. But in the story, in the comics, so good. You get the feelings of how he sees everything. The soul, again, his character was always written to be just very spiritual, seeing the soul as something sentient. And it really is the idea of, if my soul's not even here anymore, if there's nothing here, what's the point? And it's a very strong topic to have. Like, we talked about this in the video when we talked about Tai's situation when he did this. There's a whole video I did explaining this entire topic. But when he chose to take his own life, again, it's a very strong thing to talk about. It's something that is not easy to talk about. It is the act of ending oneself. It is very strong. It is something that not a lot of people like to talk about because it is a very serious subject. I'm not trying to, change it or make it seem more playful because it's in a game or anything. Gears of War does it where they tell the story, and they tell it in a very real fashion of this is how war goes. He was captured by the enemy, tortured till there was nothing left of him on the inside, and he chose to go his own way. I'm not sitting here saying whether it's right or wrong for those decisions. That's for the world to decide on their own, for each person to decide. What I am going to say is just ending this on not a bleaker note, more of a note of attention. When it comes to situations for us, people living our normal day lives, people who are just living day by day, if there's ever a situation you feel in a strong sense where an option like this you feel is on the table, it does not hurt to talk to somebody. It doesn't hurt to look into options for therapy or just anyone to talk to in general. Things do get better. It sounds corny, but it is true. Obviously, when it comes to soldiers or it comes to prisoners of war or people in countries where things are bad, those are situations I myself, many people in the world, the majority of the world, cannot fathom. It's something that is very serious and very real. There are many, many resources out there for everyone, whether it be something like the military or just a normal civilian or anything. I just kind of want to end it with that because it is a very serious subject of how Tai goes out. Out of the four, his is probably the most, not controversial, but the more pondering of what's right or wrong. That's probably the best way to put it, because everyone else goes out by enemy hands. Tai is the only one that does not go out that way. So I'm gonna end it here. No reason to just keep dragging it on like that. Make it more serious. We're here having fun, remember. I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank everyone for making it possible, and thank the patrons for making this possible. Next time we come back, we'll be covering another video involving the Zeta Squad, and then next month we'll be covering the next member of the Zeta Squad, the Squad of Death. I want to thank y'all for watching. You guys have a good one. Later.